Okay, so I want to give my top 10 college football quarterbacks for the upcoming 2026-2027 season here. Just having some fun with it. College football offseason topics. Spring ball is underway. We can talk about a bunch of different things. We can talk about President Trump and Saban and Urban Meyer and Condoleezza Rice, all getting together in D.C. on March 6th on Friday, which is going to be fascinating, candidly, to see if they can find a way to either appoint a commissioner or just get the general NIL environment and transfer portal environment under a bit more legal control, because you have schools suing schools, players suing schools, players suing administrators, schools suing players. It's really just a mess of lawsuits. And the NCAA, to their credit, was basically like, hey, CSC, you want to exist? Cool. We're good. We're going to pay this $2-something billion settlement, the NCAA versus House settlement, and then we're going to get out of here. And as a result, you guys are no longer allowed to sue us for any of this pay-for-play NIL environment stuff. They can still get sued for other things and probably still are maybe trying to get sued for some pay-for-play stuff, but in general, they can't really get sued for pay-for-play and athlete profiting, basically, as a result of that NCAA House settlement. So then enters the CSC. The CSC doesn't really know what to do, if we're going to be honest. I like the idea of it, but you see what some of these players are getting, and you're like, there's no way that guy's worth that, et cetera, et cetera. And now we have Donald Trump and Nick Saban and Urban Meyer, who apparently have been golfing together lately, all getting together along with like 50 other people, like Condoleezza Rice, Tiger Woods, et cetera, to try to solve this. I just had a flashback to when PFT commenter said Condoleezza Rice should be the head coach of the Browns. One of the great takes in sports media history, candidly. So we will see what comes of that on March 6th. I'm fascinated to see, because I think really, like, in all seriousness, the only way you can appoint a commissioner of college football and of college sports, if the NCAA is not going to do it, which they're not, is you need government intervention. Like, literally the reason Trinidad Chambliss is playing this year, the reason that Diego Pavia played last year, is because of local attorneys taking his case to court when the NCAA did not grant them eligibility. Then attorneys took it to court, and then it got granted. Like, without that Vanderbilt attorney last year, Diego Pavia doesn't play. Without this attorney for Ole Miss and this Mississippi State judge, shockingly, ruling Trinidad Chambliss eligible for 26-27, he's not playing this year. But he does get a sixth year, because even though the NCAA denied it, he was granted a sixth year in court in Mississippi. Without further ado, let's get to my top 10 college football quarterbacks list. Fun exercise. Want to point out that, again, it's all in good fun. Not trying to hot take here at all. These are just, the criteria is basically like, who did I see with my own two eyes who I liked the most last year? Also, who would I start a college football team with? Again, keyword college football. This is a college football podcast, largely. So, who are we starting a college football team with? Not a pro, a college football team with. Hence, I tend to go with dual threat guys more than just pro-style guys. I also tend to have less alignment with the NFL draft experts. Candidly, I actually haven't even looked at a NFL draft prospect list for next year to see what people have. I imagine Dante Moore's number one or Arch, but I haven't looked at that yet. This is just what I saw with my own two eyes. Stats don't matter. No hard feelings. Drew Mestamaker, he's not making the list. We'll see what he does this year with Eric Morris at Oklahoma State. Saw him in person last year. He's really good for North Texas. Got smothered at the game I was at, but in general, he had a really good season. Okay, so let's do it. Should I go 10-1 or should I go 1-10? Maybe it would add more drama. Let's do 1 through 10. And I also want to say, I would have Dylan Raiola on here. I really would. But he obviously broke his leg mid-season last year, and he's recovering this year, and he's going to be Dante Moore's backup. I can't overstate enough how incredible he's done at Nebraska. To take a program that hadn't even been to a bowl game in a decade to a bowl game his true freshman year, then the year after that have them at 6-2 with a lead over USC, and then he breaks his leg, and then they fall off a cliff. Nebraska's just the Jets of college football, and he was that great to ascend them. They obviously fell off quite a bit without him. Okay, without further ado, who is the field's number one best quarterback in college football entering this season? Who would I want if I could start my team, give me Trinidaddy Chambliss. Get on up here, Trinidaddy. 4 years at D2 Ferris State, won a national title, came to Ole Miss as a backup to back up Austin Simmons for Lane Kiffin. Hung in there. Simmons struggles early. He comes in, lights the world on fire, takes the keys, never turns back. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who maybe would have won the Heisman if he'd started from day one. I give you Trinidad Chambliss. I think the most impressive thing I saw him do was what he did against Georgia. In the first game, they scored 35 points in a loss. In the second game, they scored 39 points in a win, 39-34, and he was just making those Johnny Manziel, because it's not like it was a bad Georgia defense. It was a Georgia defense that got twice against Ole Miss and once against Tennessee, but besides that, they gave up 24 to Bama. No one else scored more than 24 on them all year, other than Ole Miss and then Tennessee. So it was still a pretty good Georgia defense. Not a vintage, insanely elite 21-22 Georgia defense, but a pretty damn good one, right? Like C.J. Allen, some other good players up front on the D-line, still plenty of good players in the secondary. Like, still a very good defense. Trinidad, he got him. Averaged 37 points a game. Really awesome that the Mississippi State judge, after the NCAA denies his waiver, grants him a 6th year just for the sake of college football, man. I mean, he also just seems like such a good guy, and I like a guy who comes from humble beginnings, and not only that, earns it at Ole Miss. Like, starts the year as the backup, comes in and earns it. Again, seems like a super humble guy. Like, could have followed Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss, doesn't, stays here on his own, and keeps going. When Lane bolted for the Bayou, he stayed with Ole Miss, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I pretty much wrote Ole Miss off. I was like, you just had the best season in school history, in modern school history. That was the best. That was the most wins Ole Miss has ever had, and Lane leaves, or they kind of shoo him out, or Lane leaves, but they also like don't have him back for you all know what it is. It was a weird situation, but Trinidad just rescues everyone and everything, and Pete Golding deserves a lot of credit for sure. And man, what a year from Trinidad! Amazing postseason run. Obviously, nearly beat Miami as well, if not for that last minute touchdown from Carson Beck. And Ole Miss nearly won the national title. So an insane year from Trinidad. I'm trying to like go quick here. I don't know how quick I should go, because I don't want this to turn into a forever thing. But whatever, we'll just keep it rolling. Darian Mensah is my number 2 QB. I went back and watched a 25-minute highlight tape of the ACC title game this morning. First of all, bienvenidos a Miami. It's going to be a fun time down there for Darian. Don't get in too much trouble, all right? He's got $6 million in his pocket. Actually, probably a lot more given his first year run at Duke with that contract. How he got here was crazy. So I'm not talking about the Prime 112 dinner with Cooper Bartkey and Cristobal and Shannon Dawson, and I think they had like Edgerrin James there or something. But God, the U seems like a fun place to get recruited to. But what I'm talking about is, so he signs a 2-year deal with Duke. He starts at Tulane, goes to Duke, signs a 2-year deal with Duke, lights it up, and then Miami's like, yeah, we still don't have a quarterback. Shoot, Sam Levitt's going to LSU. Who else is out there? Wait, Dylan Raio's going to Oregon. And he's broke his leg. Dude, we don't have a lot of options. Brendan Sorsby's getting cashed out by Texas Tech. What? So they're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we know this guy's under contract. F it. We don't care. And so they go after Darian Mensah, and they get him. And they find a way in a court of law to get Duke to release him from his contract, which I'm telling you, that must have cost a load of money. And then they pay him, obviously, more than the $4 million that he was getting at Duke. I think all in, I think they bought Mensah for $10 million. Seriously, I think they did. I think they bought him for about $10 million because I think they had to buy him out of his contract with Duke. He was under contract. They went to a court of law, and the sides settled. To me, that means Miami paid them at least $4 million to get out of that for them to get out of that deal. They were probably already ticked off enough anyway, $4 or $5 million. Then they obviously recruit him. Then they pay him a lot more than the $4 million that Duke was giving him for him to go down to Miami and change places, especially after a year where everything went great, largely speaking, for Duke. First outright ACC title since 1962, and he still leaves. Like that cheese must have been real good in Coral Gables. I think he was $10 million all in. I really do. By the way, I like Cooper Bartkate. Cooper Bartkate. Like him a lot. Modern day to Harvard to Duke to Miami. He was big time in Charlotte in that ACC title game. They have a big time connection. So that is going to be like, there are going to be moments next year where Miami's in a tight game and they're going to do something crazy. I'm calling that right now. Like, there's going to be a Mensa to Bartkate play, or maybe many plays in big moments next year where you're like, holy crap, that was insane. Because those guys are that good and their chemistry is that good. On the field, dual threat guy, big arm, smaller guy, but big arm, processing ability, shiftiness, leadership. Again, I love that he led Duke to their first outright ACC title since '62. He was dynamite in that ACC title game. Can't wait to watch him and Bartkate next year. The U is going to need to reload on defense. The defense was the story of that team this year, but if they can, damn, they got a great QB and a great receiver who he is comfortable with. Number 3, Arch Manning, Texas. Up and down first year. Obviously, they end it very well. Win 10 games, crush A&M, crush Michigan, and beat Oklahoma. I was at that game. Beat Vandy. I was at that game. Obviously, definitely got destroyed down the stretch against Georgia, and did not play well in the opener against Ohio State. Again, Brandon Harris, the GM, and Steve Sarkisian, the head coach, they failed Arch, man, with how much they whiffed on the O-line recruitment. Like, you had Alex Harkey down the road in San Marcos, and you let him go to Oregon. Like, dude, the O-line was so bad for Texas this year. Like, when San Jose State is consistently raiding your backfield, you've got a serious O-line problem. And so Arch overcame that. I have nothing but the ultimate respect for Arch. He has an insane feel for the game, great athleticism. Obviously, he kind of struggled with the yips or confidence, or just probably not wanting to get absolutely murdered or have his knee blown out earlier in the year when he knew that dudes were coming from all angles. But they got Cam Coleman. They paid for Cam Coleman. As a result, Parker Livingston leaves and goes and gets more money from Oklahoma. You don't have to like it. I certainly don't, but it's just the way the sport's going right now. They do bring back Ryan Wingo, who's the team's leading receiver last year. Livingston and Manning had an unreal chemistry last year, so they'll need to replace that. But Wingo and Coleman, good start. Trey Wisner transferred. He is, where did he go? I just remembered this. Florida State, that's right. So Trey Wisner's off to Florida State. Pretty good running back, but no one that's like irreplaceable for sure. I think Arch is probably the top QB prospect in the 27 draft. I would certainly take him over Dante Moore. I don't know how other people feel about that, but in terms of college QBs, I would have him at 3. If I could take anyone, I would take those 2 dual threat guys first, and then Arch. And by the way, Arch is a great dual threat. We all know he's a really good runner, and he runs when he can. Obviously, ran very effectively at times last year, including the A&M and the Michigan games. He ran wild in those games. So, very, very, very good player. Number 4, this might be a little bit of a surprise. I know he's coming off an injury, but I'm going to go with Sam Leavitt. I've just seen him a lot. I love his insane competitiveness, and I love the match with Lane Kiffin. I mean, we saw what Lane did with Trinidad this year. That kind of came out of nowhere. Most wins in school history. Trinidad looking like a Heisman caliber player. Like, no one expected that coming into the year. I think Lane's that gifted of an offensive coach, and Sam Leavitt has all the tools. I mean, he's got the dual threatness. He's a really good runner. Really good arm strength, insane competitor. I was telling this story, but I called a bunch of high school basketball, and I'm actually calling a couple of high school state title games next week in Oregon, which will be really fun. But Sam Leavitt was kind of the garbage man for the basketball team. He was the starting QB on the football team for Westland, and they won the state title, but he was the garbage man of the basketball team, like not really a basketball player, just a great athlete, and he got teed up in that title game just for being like a Draymond Green type. He was just getting into everyone's face, so he's an insane competitor. By the way, Westland lost that game to Tualatin, my alma mater. Shout out, beat Westland in that title game, but he's just a great competitor. Like, that's a compliment. That's what I mean to say, is he's just got an insane competitiveness about him. The LSU basketball game picture where him and Kiffin are courtside is really funny. All kinds of tweets going off there about where different players are going. And then He takes his OV to Tennessee the next day, and then Kiffin flies into the Knoxville airport to re-recruit him the next day. His recruitment was out of control, as many of these seem to be. But, I think people forget how bad LSU was on offense last year. Like, Garrett Nussmeier came into the year, he threw for 4,000 yards the year before. Brian Kelly's back, Nussmeier's back, a couple of receivers are back. And it just wasn't good. And you can blame the O-line, but it was just a whole unit just not very good. So LSU really needs an offensive revival. Like, it might not just be a switch that you can flip overnight, but if you can, it would be Leavitt and Lane doing that. Josh Hoover at number 5 for Indiana. Another dual threat, experienced, accomplished, mature QB. He's going to be 23. How am I doing on time? Yeah, I knew this would run long. He's going to be 23. And he is just a fantastic athlete. I mean, I've seen him play in person a couple times for TCU under Sonny Dykes. Like, really runs around, airs it out. They run a spread, kind of the Max Duggan look, the team who made the title game a couple years ago with Max and Quentin Johnston. So he's like an air it out, run around, spread it out kind of guy, very mobile. So, Mendoza's mobility was a huge part of Indiana's success this year, and Hoover definitely has mobility. He's not as big, but he's got serious mobility, and he's 23. That is the formula for Coach Sig. He doesn't want your 5-star QB who's 19. He doesn't want your 5-star QB who's 20. He wants a 22, 23-year-old who has a couple years of experience playing college football. That is certainly the winning formula the last couple of years. Every QB who's won the national title since T-Law in 18 when he won it as a true frosh. Since then, 19 and on, every QB has been a 4th or a 5th-year guy except for one. I was just reading this stat. I'm rattling them off in my head. Who was the guy? Was it J.J. McCarthy who wasn't? I think it may have been J.J. McCarthy who wasn't a 4th or a 5th-year guy, but everyone else was. I mean, you look back at recent history, obviously, Burrow is an older guy. Mac Jones was an older guy. Will Howard was an older guy. So, obviously Mendoza was. So, yeah. Anyways, I like what they're doing with recruiting these 22, 23-year-old QBs. I mean, I just think that's the way to go, and Josh Hoover's next in line. I think he'll fit right in there with what Sig wants to do. They do lose Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr. They do bring back the legend Charlie Becker and Michigan State wide receiver transfer Nick Marsh, who should produce some big numbers this year. He had 2 really good seasons at Michigan State, and they were lifeless at QB the last 2 years under Jonathan Smith. Dante Moore at Oregon, I have at number 6. A lot of people have him higher. I think if you just look at the highlights and don't watch the games, Dante Moore's number 1. His highlight throws against Iowa, insane. Against Wisconsin, insane. Against USC, did whatever he wanted. Overtime against Penn State, did whatever he wanted. But if you watch the full games, it can be pretty clunky. And against Indiana, both games, it was really bad. Now, I know Indiana's very good, but it was really bad against Indiana both times. It was really bad against Texas Tech. It was really bad against Wisconsin. That was a bad weather game, though. It was pretty dang bad against Iowa. Those are all good defenses, very good defenses, but, Oregon's, I think, 5 best opponents, they averaged, I did the math, they averaged 16 points a game, I want to say, against their 5 best opponents. It's just nowhere near good enough. I don't think Moore was anywhere near good enough, to be frank. Now, I do think his upside is insane because his arm strength, like, he'll make throws where you're like, holy crap. Like the Iowa throw, like a throw against, Washington in the 4th quarter of that game. Like the Malik Benson basically threw 4 guys. Like, he makes the wow throws. He's just got to be a lot more consistent. And again, he's only 20, turns 21, I think, this spring. So he just needs more experience, man, because there were too many clunkers last year for me to have him in the top 5 for sure. But definitely some highlight plays, and he can be a really, really good player. He's just got to improve that processing. Watching it against Michigan or against Indiana, especially the first time too with those 2 late picks, but especially the second time around, like, he basically just handed them 21 points right off the bat. That processing just needs to get better. Simply does. Number 7, I have Gunnar Stockton for Georgia. This dude, as my podcast co-host Big Tony would like to say, is tougher than an Applebee's steak. He is just Bring on the beating. Bring on the beating. He's got the face mask and the visor of like a running back / receiver. I swear he's part running back, part quarterback, part beast. I mean, that dude could play for me any day. He puts it all on the line. Remember, he came into the second half against Texas in Atlanta in the SEC title game in 24 and beat them when Beck basically got his arm destroyed on that Hail Mary throw just before half. That was not a smart play by Kirby Smart that ended up costing them. And then obviously he led Georgia to the SEC title over Alabama last year. Dude, I love that Tennessee game. I don't know if you guys caught that. They were down 14 early at Neyland. Place was rocking. It was a September game. Just an amazing, amazing atmosphere. Tennessee, Georgia at Neyland in September. Jesus Christ. Hooked that into my veins. And they were down 14 early. They rally back. They're still down 8 late, 38-30. And then Stockton throws an unreal 4th and 8-ish deep ball to London Humphreys, like for a touchdown. Like he all they needed was a first down. They were probably on the 25-30. He throws a touchdown on 4th and 8. Incredible throw, incredible catch. They get the 2-point conversion to Zachariah Branch, and then they win the game in overtime, 44-41. Dude, he is very, very good and certainly good enough to lead Georgia to a national title. They just got get a little bit more consistent on defense for them to do that. But I really like Gunnar Stockton. I have Julian Sayin at 8. I thought about putting him at 9 or 10. I mean, listen, they were undefeated in the regular season last year. His numbers were good. But against Texas, 14 points. Washington, 24 points. Michigan, 27 points. And then you think about the last 2 games of the season they played, 10 points against Indiana, 14 against Miami, both in losses. To average 12 points a game against the 2 best opponents, like, it's just not good enough. I do think Ryan Day was extremely conservative in those games. I also do think that they couldn't really run the ball in the red zone against Indiana and couldn't really run it against Miami. The pick 6 against Miami, obviously not a great look. When you have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, like, you expect to score at least in the 20s in those big games, and they weren't able to do that. But still think he's got tools. I do think he's really quick in the pocket. Like, I really like his pocket quickness, if that makes sense. Against Texas, he kind of scrambled out of sacks quite a bit with that pocket awareness and pocket quickness, and definitely have respect for that. So he's got the tools. He was obviously a young player this year, but just wasn't really good enough in the big games, the 2 biggest games, I should say. Played well against Michigan, played it okay against Washington, didn't play very good against Texas, but they still won. Arthur Smith is the new OC, and Jeremiah Smith returns. So a couple good Smiths on his side. JKS, Jaron Kiave Sagupolatele, straight out of Iwa Beach, Hawaii, straight out of St. Louis High School, but then transferred to the other local high school later in his career. St. Louis is the Mariota to Timmy Chang High School, total factory down there. Threw for 3,454 yards with 18 touchdowns and 9 picks last year as a true freshman. He started in all 13 games for the Bears. They went 7-6. He was almost a duck out of high school, actually was a duck out of high school, participated in the college football playoff Rose Bowl prep in 24, was on the Oregon team, then went to Cal, played obviously as a true freshman last year, played very, very well, was getting praise from a ton of people, a ton of former NFL players, Des Bryant, a bunch of other NFL receivers on social media, like, were really hyping him up. They're like, this guy's insane. Someone's going to pay him a ton of money. Well, was it going to be Oregon? Honestly, maybe. If Dante Moore didn't come back, I think it might have been better for Oregon if he didn't. That's TBD. But Dante Moore comes back. They also had Dylan Raiola. Tosh Lupoy, Cal alum, former UODC, gets the Cal job, flies to Hawaii, says, yo, man, you should come back. Here's a bag of money. And they find enough money to bring him back. I'm sure that there were big-time programs offering him big-time money. But I think Tosh's recruitment and Tosh being a Cal alum and the new coach there, I think it really meant a lot. So big shout-out to Tosh for finding a way to recruit him back, because he's an incredible, incredible player. 6'3", 225, lefty, just smooth, buttery, deep ball. Had a couple of head-scratching interceptions like the Virginia game, but, that'll obviously happen as a true freshman. I think he is just dynamite. For him to only be a true freshman and be that good last year was crazy. All right, and finally, number 10, as I try to wrap this up, Marcel Reed. I have Marcel Reed at number 10. I think he's kind of a forgotten-about player. Remember, A&M started the season 11-0 last year. They were the toast of college football. They beat Notre Dame on the last play of the game, 41-40. Last second throw by Reed, who escapes and hits the tight end for a touchdown. Just a legendary win in South Bend for A&M last year. Kirk Herbstreit really praises his character, his leadership, etc. He's known the guy personally since high school, so that's obviously another feather in the cap there. And dude, just more than anything, to get A&M from the old funny nickname Texas 8-4, to get them from kind of a laughing stock to 11-0 and a college football playoff berth. Like, I know that Arch and Texas smacked them pretty good in Austin, but dude, to get them to 11-0 and into the playoff, that is a great step forward for that program, and Reed is the big reason why. I mean, Mike Elko's obviously proving to be a fantastic coach and a fantastic defensive mind, but without Marcel Reed scrambling around and just his leadership, the aura, as the kids say, but it's real. Like, I think, him being an alpha leader, obviously a great QB, that just really helps. So he is a huge reason that Texas A&M has turned it around. They were 11-0 last year, man. They were 11-0 at one point last year. And they scored 3 points at home in the playoff game against Miami. And they also got creamed by Texas in Austin. But before that, they were 11-0, and it was great. And I do think, you look at their schedule, they did beat Florida, LSU, and Missouri, but they didn't face any of the good teams until the very end. They didn't face Alabama at all, Oklahoma at all, Georgia, Vandy, any of those teams up at the top. So they did get a bit of a break with that schedule. All right, that's a look at your my, I should say, top 10 college football QBs for this upcoming season. Hope you guys enjoyed it.